It's another Moss Football Friday and a huge weekend ahead. I've got the whole crew here. It's that big. A huge weekend that was. Welcome back to the man in the middle, Vegas Mack. How are you, buddy?
Hey, doing well. Good to see you guys. Missed you last week.
You didn't really miss all of us. I'm guessing you missed one of us, and it's probably not me.
Yeah, I did miss TJ. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I kind of figured you did, because my charming personality.
Or something along the lines. But what a weekend we've got coming up. But we can't go forward, guys, until we go backwards. And I'm going to let Mack get the first crack at this. After the greatest college football Saturday ever assembled, what are your thoughts of last weekend? Because I still can't believe what we saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was from beginning to end. It was absolutely amazing. That was just so much fun to watch. Every game seemed like it was going into overtime or they were close. That was as fun a weekend as college football as I can honestly remember. Quite a few shockers in there. A couple of things that we kind of figured were going to happen, but when it's all said and done, man, oh man, I'm ready for another weekend like that. We need to figure out how we can get more of that. Can we get it again this weekend? I mean, that was spectacular.
Tej, you and I talked about this in last week's show. I don't know how you top that. I mean, I've watched the Oregon-Ohio State game now, I think 3 or 4 times over, and it still amazes me just as much as it did the first time. Like, what were your thoughts as we were blowing up the group text last weekend?
Man, well, first off, the night you go to the Oregon or Ohio State game, right? And that is just incredible in itself. And then I know that for a fact that you were watching that Colorado game as well, because we both, I believe, had something riding on it. But it's like it was like this, right? You get the Oregon Ohio State game and you're up here, and then you kind of like, oh, there's not another. Oh, yes, there is. There's another game. Let's keep watching. And so, but the whole day, right? Even as early as the Penn State game, which was the first game I started watching, it was just top to bottom for 11 hours, just great.
Penn State, we'll get to them in a freaking minute. But yeah, I had the sweat of all sweats last weekend. BYU to cover a small number, and then Oregon, and then LSU on the money line as well in the same ticket. It was the wildest ride I can remember being on in a long time on a Saturday. You get a clock running out on the Buckeyes, and then Garrett Nussmeier finds his cannon in the last minute, and then again in overtime for LSU. And that's why we love college football. And your point on the Colorado Kansas State game, I mean, we were on opposite sides of that one, but just the fact that after all of that finished, we got an opportunity there to get another one and another one, and it was the gift that kept on giving. Now we go into another weekend, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, and jump in here wherever you want to, but the way the morning started, everybody, and I got kind of crap for this from our circle of people involved in the show, the Alabama-South Carolina game, everybody was like, it was great. I didn't think it was a great game just because it ended up in a crazy finish. It wasn't a great game. There's a big difference there. And, going through and seeing everything come about, the morning wasn't great, but from 12:30 on, it went crazy. It went crackhead. It went every adjective that you can possibly add, Mac.
Well, it was funny because I started with the Iowa-Washington game. That's where my Saturday started. And, here's Washington. They take the ball right down the field, finally get stopped. They go for a field goal. That gets blocked. And then Iowa goes down, and they score a touchdown. And then Washington comes right back and scores. I mean, this was an off-the-wall way to kind of start the day for me. I was just like, if this is how the day is going to be, this is going to be absolutely crazy. And then to see, again, that was kind of like one of the games they were talking about is like, who had Iowa putting up 40 points? I mean, that was just a crazy start to the day.
Iowa absolutely manhandled Washington. And, I don't know if you got a chance to see them, and poor lead direction here from me on this, but Jed Fish came out today and he talked about watching the Ohio State-Oregon game on Saturday and how it was two $20 million rosters on the field. And once the playing field is level, it'll be better. And like, I got two things for you. Quit crying about it and recruit better. I mean, that's what it is. You knew what you were getting into leaving Tucson and going to Seattle. I don't feel sorry for the coaches that want a level playing field here. We knew what this was going to. We know where it's headed. We know it's going to get even crazier than it is now. What's up? Like, recruit better. Talk to your, work your coaches better. Do your thing.
It's different. We've talked about that. The landscape of college sports has just changed, and that's just the way that it's going to be. And you're either gonna survive or you're not. I mean, we can look at it. We talked about it. We've talked about it in a basketball sense, where that's what the Caliparis have. That's what he did. That's what Coach Calipari did. He took all those kids, those one and done. Remember, nobody wanted him. Why is he doing this? That was kind of the start of all of this. Those kind of kids, and now we're seeing it with all these other sports, and now with the money that these kids are getting. Yeah, it's a different landscape, and you can watch these recruits go by, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to walk right on by. It's a different story. Your team is not set. Teams have been set for years. Teams aren't going to be set anymore. You're going to have to build your team every single year, and that's just the way that it's going to be.
Tej, I don't know how much of that you caught. We got you back in here. You were missing in action, kind of like Washington was at Iowa there. How did the day start for you? That was kind of where we were at when we lost you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started for me with Penn State and USC. I mean, I was tracking morning games, the Alabama game early, but yeah, I finally got on the couch for Penn State USC, and it was just one of those things where it was nonstop, like just going back and forth and back and forth. But I heard a lot of what Mack said about schools having to build their teams year after year, and he's absolutely right, especially with the environment that's being created right now. You have no choice if you want to be successful. This is the new landscape. You have to do this. You have to be out there 2 weeks after, and or even before then, and thinking about next year. You have no choice. And it's the teams who are going to be able to do that successfully who are going to be great and consistently great. And the teams that cannot do that, they're not going to be able to hang.
Yeah, absolutely. And, before we get into my thoughts on the Mac-12 this week, because Vegas and myself here are going to have a little conversation about his honor system that is the Mac-12. But I think all in all the way around, I mean, I don't think there's a person, unless you're an Ohio State fan, still crying about Dan Lanning's tactics at the end of the game. Never mind the fact that the first damn drive of the friggin' game for Ohio State, there was a clear interception that was never buzzed down to be stopped, never reviewed. Oregon could have got that game off the rails the second it started. But now Ohio State fans, we saw earlier this week, I think it was on Wednesday or something, when the NCAA came out and changed the rule about the timing on the clock running out and this, that, and the other thing. And now, like, some of the Ohio State fans that are still in their sorry we lost bag and talking about how it should be a no contest. No, you lost. And there was plenty of gifts given on both sides there. Just be quiet. You're both in the mix, and we'll get to the college football playoff here in a second. That was, and I'm going to get a lot of crap for saying this, for my money, game of the century, be gone. That was the greatest college football game I have ever watched start to finish, outside of maybe the Boise State Oklahoma Fiesta Bowl. I've got a whole story for that one. That game, start to finish, Mac, it was ridiculously amazing. And like I said, I've watched it 3 or 4 times now again, and it's still just as good.
Yeah, I mean, that was the type of game where, I mean, I was glad I wasn't a fan really of either of those teams, because that just had to be a gut wrenching, 3 hours experience right there. I mean, that's the kind of game you really don't want to be a fan of one of those teams. You just want to sit there and just take it in, because every time I watched it, it was kind of like, oh man, there's no way that, Oregon's coming back, and oh, wait a minute, they are coming back. There's no way Ohio State's coming back. Oh, wait a minute, they are coming back. I mean, it was that kind of game. And I even put it out there. I said, I thought the team that had the ball last was going to be the team that won that game, and it just about happened.
Yeah, and TJ, I mean, I know you and I were going back and forth. Mack was a little preoccupied for part of the day Saturday, but we talked about this even leading into it, and I walked through. My poor fiance thought it was crazy. I'm like, you know how long I've waited for this game? And she's like, these two teams? And I'm like, I've been waiting since January when I knew it was going to come out. We've said it. You guys have all said it. I mean, you can go back through our channels. January of last year, I said multiple national titles for Dan Lanning's Ducks. Whether you love him or you hate him, he's doing the job. That takes us to the Mac-12, which I think there's a clear-cut number one. I don't think there'd be any argument there. Texas is number one in our Mac-12. Number two is Oregon. And number three is where we have a problem. So James Franklin, fan club president, Vegas Mac, why don't you take the floor on the Mac-12 at number 3, which is Penn State?
All right. I mean, let's give credit where credit is due. This is the team that in the first half of that game, I don't think they got off the bus yet. I think they were playing their second or third string. They did not look good, but they came back. And I mean, let's just be honest. These teams that are having to make these trips from East Coast to West Coast, it's a difficult thing. Don't wait, bro. Come on. You know it is. For these college kids, this is a big thing. This is something new for them. They don't have to do this all that often, and now they're having to do it 2 or 3 times a year. Penn State is the third best team right now in the country, and that's just the way that it is. Have they lost? No. That's all there is. They're the third best team.
You want to second string me all you want. Hey, run the damn ball in the first half. You know what I like the most, and TJ and I spent some good time talking about this from a betting angle last week, is the 2 time zone trip, blah, blah, blah. Kurt Signetti earlier this week was on the Pat McAfee show, and they were talking to him about the travel plans and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you know what? We got there late. We ate our meal late. We played at 3:30, kicked their ass, got on the plane, came home. You know what? You can make it an excuse all you want, but we've seen this from Penn State before. They are not the third best team in the country. If they were that damn good, that game wouldn't have been as close as it was, because I know, and here's the flip side of the argument. TJ, I know you're going to have something to say about this. USC is a couple of plays away from possibly being 5-1 or 6-0. We can say the same thing about USC. Those are 2 coaches that can't get the job done. I have zero faith in Penn State. If they knew what they needed to do to beat the Trojans, why didn't they do it from step one? That's my issue with Penn State.
Well, that's the issue with Penn State consistently, is why can't they do it from the jump, for bad sports analogy there. But they do this all the time. And if I'm convinced that if USC had a number next to their name going into this week's game, they would have lost. Penn State would have lost, because for some reason, Penn State just gets it in their head and they can't beat ranked teams. They just can't under James Franklin. I don't know what it is. They're just not good.
But can't you say the same thing about Ohio State? I mean, we can put Ohio State in that exact, let's just put Ohio State and Penn State. Tell me the last time Ohio State beat anybody when it mattered. You can't, because they don't. So
you're not going to.
Maybe I should put Ohio State out.
You're not going to get an argument from me, especially considering it's an Ohio State team that had to wait until week 7 to leave the state of Ohio, which is, I mean, let's call it how it is. That's just hot garbage. And, the schedule makers just do that on purpose. But no, you could absolutely put Ohio State in that same spot. There's probably a ton of teams you can put in that same spot.
Well, and here's the thing with Ohio State, and we talked about this a couple of times a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it last week. Ohio State's leaving Columbus, last weekend for the second time all year. Now we're going to see how that's going to affect them down the road as we start to look at how the college football playoff is forming. But I'm not done with you, Mr. Purple shirted man in the middle there. No LSU, no Iowa State. I'm going to ask you why before I jump you for the answer.
Wait a minute. So give me one good reason why LSU should even be thought about.
They're tied for first in the SEC.
I mean, who have they beat? Oh, so what? Who have they beat? It's so just like, I know you're going to give me this whole Miami thing. Okay, that's great. Miami's beaten every single school in Florida. That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's all they've done. They haven't done anything. The one game that they won on the road, they didn't really win. We all know that Virginia Tech really won that game. They didn't win that game. So I don't want to hear it. Beat somebody good. Beat a good team, and then I'll put you in my rankings. But you haven't done that yet.
So you mean to tell me the team that's tied for first in the SEC just knocked off a perennial, this team should be a title contender favorite in Ole Miss last weekend. They're tied for first in the SEC. See, I know why. Because you think you've had this, and we need to discover this on a different show, TJ. I think we need to bring in a scientist for this. You've got this weird love affair with Arkansas. And without spilling the apple cart before we get to that game, because I know it's your favorite game this weekend, LSU is tied for first in the SEC. Iowa State right now is the team to beat in the Big 12. And Iowa State hasn't entered the conversation yet either. But meanwhile, we've got Ohio State ranked, and you're gonna use the argument of who have you beaten? Well, who's Ohio State beaten?
Yeah, all right. I'll give you that. But just the same, I'm telling you, right now, Penn State is the third best team because you know what? They're still undefeated. They've done what they've needed to do. Excuse me. And I don't think Iowa State has beaten it. I mean, that's the thing. I think my view is what's fresh. I don't care what you've done before. I want to see what you've done. And right now, Penn State continues to win. If Penn State wins all the rest of their games, you're going to tell me that they should be ranked first or second?
No, well, I can straight tell you they're not going to win the rest of their games. Something's going to go sideways. You know this for a fact. Iowa State beat Iowa, but I mean, when who is anybody now? Who is anybody? Like, do they have to be ranked for it to mean anything? I mean, that game against Iowa was a dang good football team, and it was an in-state rivalry, which they're going to bring it. Both sides are going to bring it. That was a really good game as far as Iowa State goes. Ohio State, I agree with you. Who have they? Miami? Yeah, they should probably be 5-1. They probably should be. They've got bailed out. But actually, I take that back. They should probably be 4-2, and they shouldn't even be in this conversation. But Cal did Cal things in the fourth quarter. This is a great conversation because I'm sure that there are a ton of teams that you can look at going, who have they beat? And with this whole realignment thing going on, the teams like USC or the UCLAs or the Washingtons, the teams that were added to the Big Ten. I mean, like Washington, who are they, right? I mean, or UCLA. UCLA is just straight garbage. USC proving to be not so good, especially with that back and forth travel. They have to do it again this week for the fifth week in a row. It's back and forth. So, I think what we have to do here, though, is we have to probably look at our definition of who is who and maybe refine that definition because it's not like it was before.
Well, and I think the same thing. I mean, Indiana this week. Indiana has a big game this week. I mean, they're undefeated. But, I mean, again, it goes to that same thing. I mean, who have they really played? I mean, Northwestern's like the best team that they've played so far this year. So, yeah, they're undefeated. They're 6-0, but, how good is this team?
Yeah, and there is a lot to both of that. And you guys both know on the Penn State argument, we're going to find out a hell of a lot about Penn State. They've got a tough road game at Wisconsin. Say what you want about Wisco. They're not the same team. That's still a tough-ass place to play. And then, oh, by the way, they play a team with a number in front of their name 2 weeks after that, and that's Ohio State.
And I'll tell you what, I'm pretty close. I don't know that Penn State. I mean, I think they deserve the third, but I don't even know if they're the best team in that state. You know my love for the Pitt Panthers.
I
Get
can't,
this
TJ,
guy
go for it.
get this guy away from the Rivers. I mean, just straight up get him away from him.
All right, let's look at the actual solid projections here. We'll circle back to something there. So Austin Mock from The Athletic is a pretty dialed in guy, especially when it comes to the college football projections. And there's no shocker here. Right now, if you were to play the season ended today kind of game, you got Texas as the number 1 seed, Oregon is the 2, Miami is the 3, and Iowa State as the 4. Your 4 most likely conference champions. Then we get into the scenario with the group of 5 team, which right now looks like it would be Boise State in Austin Mock's collection of the CFP projections. We've got number 8, Bama, number 9, Clemson, number 5, Ohio State, number 12, Boise State, which I think would be an incredible game for a little while. Number 7, Georgia, number 10, Notre Dame, number 6, Penn State, number 11, Indiana. The Penn State-Indiana winner would go to play Miami. Georgia, Notre Dame would get Oregon. Ohio State, Boise State to Iowa State. Bama, Clemson to Texas. As far as the bracket works, not in those buildings. But we've got some interesting stuff going on here. And there's a couple of games that we're going to talk about after we get into the Friday slate. There's some games that put some teams in a do-or-die position this weekend. Mainly, I'm looking at one in Tennessee, 2 teams that are going in the wrong friggin' direction, both of them. But what do you guys think on the initial kind of projection now that we're this far into the season, Mac, with what we think we're going to get from what we know right now?
I mean, I like the fact that we can see it. That's the first thing that's kind of nice that it's there, and we can start playing that game a little bit. I mean, for me, I think there's more intrigue about those teams like 5 on down. I mean, that's where the real intrigue is going to be here in the next couple of weeks because, for instance, I know Indiana's in there. If they lose this week, are they even going to have a chance to get back into that? There's a lot of teams, like Army, Navy. We talked about that, like how Mike, you were telling me that they could actually end up playing, you told me 2 weeks in a row. And if things worked out, they could actually be playing to get to a chance to be in the playoffs. Imagine that kind of scenario. That's the kind of things that's kind of fun for me to see. Those conference championships will take care of themselves, but I think those last 5 or 6 teams that get in is going to be really interesting.
TJ, what do you think? I mean, I like this. I mean, this right here, TJ, is exactly what we all wanted as college football fans. No more pissing contests about number 5 and number 6. Let's let the 12-ish best teams in the country battle it out. I love where this is at right now.
Well, it definitely gives you some intriguing matchups to look at. Granted, we are still a ways away, but this kind of gets you to start salivating over some of these matchups and some of these games that have the potential of being just like the conference foes meeting again. Like a Penn State, Indiana. That seems like it'd be a good one. An Oregon, Georgia would be incredible, right? And I wouldn't be surprised to see Boise give Ohio State a run, especially with that running game. I think it'd be a lot closer than most people think. Looking at this projection, I mean, I don't have any arguments with it really right now. I think it looks solid and yeah, I mean, we're going to see a lot of movement though, for sure.
There's the lurking possibility that we get, and I'm going to bring this team up specifically because Mack talked about them on Laces Out this week. There's a lurking possibility that could be looking at a potential rematch of Georgia and Clemson, which started the year. Now, obviously, Georgia's got their hands full this weekend. Clemson's still trying to climb up the board. All these teams that we're talking about in this current projection model, they've all kind of got their hands full this week, and we could see a lot of movement. And then when you look to kind of the bubble side of teams, that's where your Kansas States, your Tennessees, your LSUs, A&M, UNLV, as much as we don't think they belong in the mix, they're still there. BYU's got some climbing to do, and based on what Austin Mock at The Athletic does with this projection, one of the most dynamic and consistent metrics that the committee's used over a 10-year period is strength of resume and strength of record. So when you do this and you dive deep into this, that's where, maybe UNLV can fall off. But the one thing we forget, and I believe it's next week, don't quote me on this, but I think it's next week, Boise and UNLV play each other. And that's a huge game. And I think it's on a Friday night without having it up in front of me. I mean, we talk about these Friday night games that we're about to jump right into here, with one of them coming up here in just a few minutes at the top of the hour, Florida State and Duke. But we've got a lot this weekend that's really going to start to shift this as we get into the mid to late October, which is always the best time for college football. I mean, I can't wait for this weekend. There's some great matchups there too.
Well, yeah, the projection is nice and it's good and it's fun to speculate on what we have here, but we're definitely going to see a lot of movement. I'm very interested in see, like you said, how BYU, what happens to them, because that's a dang good football team. And I have a feeling right now that they're kind of getting the short end of the stick here. That's a team that I think is going to win the Big 12 the way that they're playing right now.
No, absolutely. Mack, final thoughts before we jump into the Friday schedule.
I think that Boise State team is going to be dangerous. I think they're a pretty darn good team.
Well, we've got, again, coming up here just in a few minutes, the Florida State and Duke matchup starts our Friday night slate. Duke, about a 3-point favorite, depending on what you're looking at. Florida State, we know the dumpster fire that the Seminoles are, but defensively, this team does kind of get it done. Duke's offense is statistically worse in every category than Florida State's offense, if you can believe that or not. But this game is being played at Wallace Wade. Florida State's up against it. Mike Norvell is up against it. Just a quick thought on this game. Do you guys have a lean? Vegas? Mack, I'll start with you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Florida State has not really showed up for me at any big time so far this year. I just don't see it. But it's hard for me as I watch Duke offensively. I just don't know that they're going to be able to put up, I think, enough points. I think Florida State's actually going to win this game.
Yeah, I like the spot for the Seminoles. What do you think, Teach?
Yeah, I was leaning under on this game, to be honest with you. And you know how I love betting the unders. But, Florida State offensively, I don't know. I think they're still reeling from what happened to them at the end of last year. I just don't think they've gotten over it yet. Meanwhile, Duke, this game screams to me 16-6.
Duke is Duke. Yeah, and Manny Diaz has got some work to do there at Duke, but I think he'll get him in the right spot. Of all the games on Friday night, I think that's the one I have the least interest in here in a couple of minutes. But let's jump on the choke boat, fellas, and there's a lot of vested interest on this show for this. Fresno State at Nevada, and I know we're going to get an interesting take on this. Mack just saw Fresno State not that long ago. Obviously, we've got a current student at Nevada, an alumnus of Nevada here. Right now, Fresno, about a 3-point favorite. Again, depending on where you look. Guys, I'm not going to say that every time. We know lines change. Mikey Keene for Fresno State is an interesting kind of look in this game for me. In his last 2 games, both that they've lost, one of which that you were at, Mack, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 6 times. Now, that being said, I don't know how many games Nevada is going to be able to win where the quarterbacks are leading passer, receiver, and rusher, as TJ pointed out on Head of the Class. I don't really feel a certain side of this. I know Fresno's better than what you saw a couple weeks ago, Mack, but I'm leading with the Pack on a Friday night at home against a team that I kind of think is about the same level they are. And that choke boat momentum in Nevada is a big deal right now.
I'll tell you what, the Pack's going to win this game. That Fresno team I saw was absolutely terrible in every aspect. Offense, defense, special teams. They were a stink pot. They were terrible. That was not a good football team. And you can't tell me they got better in 2 weeks. There's just no way there's just no way the Pack is going to lose this week. In fact, I would be surprised if they blew them out. Pack's hot right now.
Well, you know what you're going to get. I mean, Choate already said it. We're going to pound the football up, you know what, and you just try and stop us. I think Savion Red's going to be the star of this game. And a lot of people are talking about Lewis and that big touchdown they had. Savion Red had 4 touchdowns the other day against Oregon State. And this guy just runs and runs like a banshee. So you know they're just going to pound it right down the throats. I'm not a big fan of Brendan Lewis because I don't think he can pass the ball very well. Most of his passes are short routes, the occasional shot down the field, but most of them are 5-10 yard outs, hitting the tight end underneath, hitting the back out of the backfield. So that 67% completion rating, that's kind of deceptive there. But I think the Pack is just, I agree with Mack. They're just going to pound the ball and just say, hey, you need to stop us. Go ahead and give it a shot. Now, the good news is for Nevada is that Chuba, my guy, your guy, he is playing every position
he's pretty
on that
good.
offense. Yeah, he's pretty good. All right. He's hella good. But it's great for the offense because he can play everywhere. And so
Right.
do you need a tight end, an extra tight end on a 3rd and short? Put him in. You need someone to throw the ball on a trick play, put him in. So I really like that dimension now that he's healthy that this offense could have.
Yeah, and I like the Pack, and I like the under in this game because of the run dynamic for Nevada in that game. Now let's get to the ranked teams tonight. Obviously, Oregon and Purdue. This number, I've seen it as high as 33 for the Ducks. The over-under hovering around the 60-62. We know it's a big number. We understand it's a big number. It should be a big number. Purdue's lost 5 games in a row. Purdue's quarterback Ryan Brown in his first start last week and 297 yards passing and 118 yards rushing. Not bad numbers for your first start. Oh, by the way, now you're playing what a lot of people think is the number 1 team in the country, and you can't say enough about the job that Jordan James has done for the Ducks. I mean, the dude is a machine out of the backfield. The only other guy that's put up 100 yards and touchdowns in 3 straight games as a running back in the country is Bryson Daly from Army. I mean, nobody's talking about it because Dylan Gabriel, easy for you to say, was throwing dimes last weekend. They played without Jordan Burch. Now, that being said, short week in West Lafayette. TJ, I know you and I have the same general thought on big numbers. I'm not touching the number. I will touch the over big time on this. I think it's going to go well over 60 points.
I do too. I'm the 32.5 scares me a lot. I love the over in this game. I'd also lean towards a first half bet on this game too. This is a game where Oregon could get out to, and we talked about it last week with UNLV and Utah State. Oregon could get out to a big lead, 21-3, 24-3 type of halftime lead, and then just cruise. The same thing happened to Vegas last week. Vegas got in by a couple of backdoor touchdowns, didn't cover that, and that was only 19. So, yeah, I like this game over, but I would lean toward a first half cover.
That's what I did with Vegas last week. Speaking of Vegas Mack, are you touching a number hovering over 30 in this game, depending on where you look?
No. That's a tough, like you said, a short week. You're coming from the highest of highs as well. And then, now you got to go and let's just be honest. I mean, it's Purdue, that's a tough, I mean, mentally, remember these kids, I mean, you're playing, like you said, the game of the century last week. And now we're going to go play Purdue this week. They're going to take care of their business, but that's a big number to want to try to get to. I mean, I know Oregon's going to win this game, but man, oh man, on a short week after the game of the century, that's a tough number to hit.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think, honestly, the game of the night on this Friday slate to wrap this up, Oklahoma State at BYU in Provo. We've talked about this a lot. That is a miserable place to play if you're a visitor. It's even worse if you're there at nighttime. BYU, again, line is about 8.5. I've seen it as low as 7.5. I've seen it as high as 9.5. I like BYU big in this game, just like I liked BYU last week against Arizona. I love that. I like this football team. Jake Retzloff continues to just keep them steady, do the right thing for the Cougars, and their defense is nasty. And you know that place is going to be hopping. You've got a Big 12 opponent coming in. 3-3 Oklahoma State is teetering on the brink, so you know they're going to give everything they can. But here's the bottom line with Mike Gundy's Cowboys this year: 384 yards on 101 carries for Ollie Gordon. That's why Oklahoma State is 3-3. And I'm not saying it's all his fault, but Bowman's played well. He's done a good job, but the numbers, and I know Gordon was dealing with some injury issues early, but they're 3-3 because Ollie Gordon has 384 yards in 6 games. Let's call it what it is. I like the Cougs big in this one.
That's not going to get it done. Not at all.
And here's the other thing we need to think about. Game time temperature, 42 degrees, 40% chance of rain. Okay, that's kind of if that's not BYU Cougar weather, I don't know what is. That's going to be a miserable night tonight for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and the thing is it's always a tough place to play. And I have a friend that's up there for the game, sent me some pictures. They're already getting ready. They're already hyped. And when you look at the schedule that's laid out for BYU after this, it's UCF, then it's Utah, then it's Kansas. They're at Arizona State late in the year. Obviously, it's a little bit down the road, but UCF, I mean, again, UCF got trounced by Florida. That tells you what you need to know about UCF. The Utah game, obviously rivalry game there, but BYU's in a very, very good position. You know what really sucks about BYU's schedule? They don't play Iowa State. I hate that part of it. That's the thing I would love to see fixed. But when you have 57 teams in a conference, you just can't do it. That's, I think, the worst part of the expansion for me is there's games I want to see in conference that we're not going to get to see.
Too many teams, conferences are a little too big, and you just don't get, everybody being able to play everybody. And that's, like you said, that's just too bad.
Well, and that's going to be a result too of getting rid of the divisions too. That's at least with the divisions, you knew you were going to get those 4 or 5 opponents every year, and then a smattering from the other division. So, here's what I would do if I was BYU though. What I would do is I'd go down to the ag school, and I'd get a giant cow, and I would just put it in the middle of the field, and I would dare Mike Gundy to approach the middle of the field. And I think that's what I think he would just take his team and run back to the locker room.
As soon as I saw that story this week, there was no need to put it in the pre-show notes because I knew you were running with that one. Let's run into Saturday. Alabama at Tennessee. I'm not going to make a pick on this game because it is one of my games on Saturday, but the 107th meeting for the Tide and the Vols, both teams coming in not looking great, coming off of wins last week where they didn't look great. Jalen Milroe doing some Tim Tebow stuff, though, right now. He's got a rushing and passing touchdown in 6 straight games. Here's where I think this game's going to get decided without spilling the apple cart. Tennessee's third down defense, 24% conversion rate against the Vols on third down this year. And we talked about this a few minutes ago. The loser of this game is more than likely out of that 12 picture. Some projections have Tennessee on the outside. Again, I'm not going to make my pick on it because I've got more. But, guys, these are 2 teams coming in on the wrong direction of where we thought they'd be. Mack, what do you think?
You keep thinking Alabama's going to figure it out, right? I mean, let's be honest. Alabama going to have 3 losses so far this year easily. And you just keep thinking that they're going to figure it out, right? They're going to get there. They're going to figure it out. But I don't know. I don't know that they are going to figure it out. I mean, it's one of those things. I love Tennessee. I love what they can do from an offensive standpoint. We all know how that atmosphere is going to be. That Rocky Top is going to be just popping. But Alabama's played there before. They know that they can handle it. I mean, so maybe it's not such a big deal for them. But for me, I don't like this Alabama team. I don't know why. There's just something about this Alabama team I don't like. I think this is going to be the day for Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to win this game, Mike.
Yeah, TJ, what do you think? This is an interesting spot for me because both these teams, I don't know what to make out of them.
No, I'm with you there. I really like this as a good spot for Tennessee as well. I think they come out and pull this off. As much as we're waiting for Alabama, and yeah, it seems like ever since the win against Georgia, they've just been kind of on this downward slide, not looking great at all last week. And South Carolina is like South Carolina. This is Tennessee. You're going on the road this time. But I want to see Tennessee bounce back. I don't think they've gotten that bounce back yet from a couple weeks ago. Even the Oklahoma game, I'm waiting for them to get it all back together, and I think they do it this week at home.
Yeah, and that Oklahoma game was kind of where their offense like kind of started to go sideways, and it was like watching them against Florida last week. And that was another game that got lost in the nighttime shuffle. Their offense looks broken right now. I'll have more on that one Saturday. Miami, early game, early kickoff for us left coasters. They get Louisville. This is an interesting spot. Louisville's had their opportunities this year. They're 4-2. It's not a bad football team. It is a road game for the Canes. We talk about wanting to see Miami actually have to play somebody and get tested. Now we're going to get to see that. About a 5-point spread, over under at 61.5. I don't like the over under at all in this game because I just don't know what I'm getting out of Louisville. The times that I've seen them this year, very inconsistent. TJ, I know Cam Ward's been at the top of your side of our Heisman discussion for most of the year. What are you looking for in this one, Miami and Louisville?
I'm looking for Cam Ward to just take over this game. That's what I'm expecting to see. I'm with you. Louisville has just been not that great. I would, if I was going to make a play on this game, I would actually take the under on this game. I see this game as being a Miami just coming out and dominating and then sitting everybody in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and it's Mack. You know, the interesting thing about Louisville is what are we going to get? Are we going to get the team that just barely beat Virginia, who's terrible? Or are we going to get the team that, you know, battled with Notre Dame? That's the frustrating thing to me about Louisville. And obviously we know where Miami sits with you.
Yeah, for me, this is a game, you know, this is a show me game. Again, it's another one. I want to see what Miami can do. You know, like you said, Louisville, this is a good team. But again, it seems like we say this about so many of these teams. We just don't know what we're going to get from these teams. But I really think this is a game where Miami should be able to put their foot in the ground and say, listen, if we're going to be considered national championship type team, if that's what we're really kind of going for, this is a game we not only need to win, but we need to start. Remember, we used to hear this all the time. It's not about so much winning the game. It's how they look in winning the game. And I think right now, that's what I need to see in Miami. Not only just a win, I want to see a convincing win from this Hurricanes team.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are looking for that from Miami. So that's another good one. Obviously, the game of the day before we get to our favorite games is number 5, Georgia, at number 1, Texas. And one of my favorite stats to look at, and it's not going to be like a complete, so all you metric nerds out there, just calm down. It's not going to be at the hierarchy of the college football stats. Max Olson puts this out on ESPN. Stop rate. The number 1 team in the country from stop rate, as far as your defense goes, that's obviously drives it in and punt, turnover, or turnover on downs, is the Texas Longhorns. Now they get big bad Georgia coming in, and this is what, you know, Mac or TJ, you talked about it last week, the Big 19. This is what they wanted. Oregon, Ohio State. Texas and Georgia is exactly what the SEC wanted. Game day is going to be there. It's going to be popping. I think this Texas defense is elite level good. And I know, TJ, I'm going to start with you because you're not going to make a pick on the game because this is the After Dark special, but this Texas defense is damn good. And I'm interested to see how Georgia and Carson Beck go after this defense, especially on the road. That's the thing that I think if this game was in Georgia, I'd have a little more lean towards Georgia. I got a feeling that Texas is going to beat the holy hell out of Georgia this weekend.
Well, this is a game for Georgia. This has got to be their redemption game because they blew it the last time against Alabama. So now they get a second kick at the can with Texas. So I would expect Carson Beck to come out guns a-blazing. I'm not going to keep a couple things in my back pocket here, but your take on this game, Mike, is spot on with what I've seen other people say, that Texas is going to come out and just go gangbusters on them.
You know, and this Texas team is good, like you said, on both sides of the ball. They may be one of the most complete teams in the country. They really are. And I'm talking, we all know that they got two quarterbacks that they can put in there as well. So that even makes them that much more dangerous. I have a feeling about this Georgia team, though. TJ, I think you said it was right. They had a chance. I mean, the way that they came back, that's probably, I know, Mike, we talked about the game of the century, but I'll tell you what, that comeback in the second half of that game was something else. I mean, I don't think any of us thought that Georgia was going to be anywhere near that close at the end of the game. In fact, to the point where they should have won. And that shows something about that team. I mean, that's pretty impressive to be able to do what they did. I think
I went to feed the dog during that game, and I come back and I was like, what the hell just happened? And I had to rewind it. I mean, it was that fast. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you got to give them credit there. But, I don't know. There's something. I mean, you saw the incident on the sideline last weekend, that got, I think, blown out of proportion with Kirby Smart and one of the Mississippi State players. It just – there's something about this Georgia team, and we see this all the time. You go on a dominant 2 or 3 year run, you come in high expectations, you have that really good game early in the season, and then all of a sudden, I just don't think this Georgia team has it. And I think this game is probably at the top of my, oh my God, it's going to get ugly meter, like last week when we were talking about Cowboys and Lions. I said I felt like the game could get out of hand real quick. This is that game this weekend for me because I think Texas's defense is just that damn good. I think we're looking at one of the better defenses we've seen in a long time in college football.
But maybe that's what Georgia wants. Maybe they want to get behind early so they can come back and this time win it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what they needed, but
No, I agree with you. And again, that'll be our After Dark special. We're going to blow through our favorite games of the weekend. We'll start with mine, Notre Dame, number 12, at Georgia Tech. This is an interesting spot because I just mentioned Max Olson's stop ratings on the defenses, and both of these defenses are good, but there is a stark difference in what Georgia Tech's defense does compared to Notre Dame's. And Mac, I know you've talked about it quite a few times. We've wondered who the hell Notre Dame actually is. Notre Dame's defense has an 80% stop rate this year, allowing about a 0.92 points per possession. When you look at Georgia Tech's stop rate, their defense is good, but they're at about 59.3%. And I think that's where the game ultimately will be decided here. I am going to take the Jackets. Because they're at home, and you're going to give me 8.5 with a Notre Dame team that has been inconsistent as all hell. And it starts at the quarterback position with Riley Leonard. I like the Jackets plus the 8.5 because I think Haynes King and Jamal Haynes for Tech are going to be able to run all over this Notre Dame defense and stretch them out a little bit. That's my favorite game of the weekend.
Yeah, this is a scary game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really a scary game for me too because, like you said, I just don't know. I mean, when I look at it and kind of look at both these teams, I'm thinking there's no way that Notre Dame, I mean, how can they not win this game, and how can they not win this game big? This is a game that they should be able to put up some big numbers, but they haven't proven that they can do it yet. So, excuse me. I think Notre Dame will cover, though. I really do. I think that I would give up the 8.5 points. I think this is going to be a week for Notre Dame. I just don't see Georgia Tech offensively being able to put up the numbers.
Tej,
what side of the fence are you on that one?
I'm on the Irish this week. I think they're just going to be too much for Georgia Tech. And I think we got to start thinking about how the Irish, how they are going to line up in this playoff. They need this win to stay out of that bottom half of that last 8. Yep. So I'm looking for them to come out and make a big statement against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that's the funny thing too, is we talked about it earlier, like Tennessee has to have a win. Bama has to have a win. When did we think we'd be at this point of the season when Tennessee, Georgia, Bama, and Notre Dame all need wins, or they're in danger of falling out of this format? I mean, that I think as we watch it play out could end up being one of the good ones. Another team that's in that spot, Mac, it's your favorite game of the week. Why don't you tell everybody who your favorite game of the week is?
That's my favorite game because it's got my favorite team, right? It's Arkansas taking on LSU. Listen, I know I've been banging the pots for Arkansas. That's right. This is a team. You want to talk about a team that's not getting respect? They could be undefeated. They are a couple of turnovers away from being an undefeated football team. This is a better football team than you think. Defensively, they do a pretty good job. Like you said, offensively, that's where their struggles have been. They've kind of crumbled in the fourth quarter. Bad penalties, bad turnovers. But listen, they're at home. They're in that same situation. They can't lose. They need this win. LSU does as well. I know I'm wearing the purple, but it doesn't matter. And it's not going to matter. I'm telling you, gone hog wild this week.
Hey, TJ, I can't. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm taking LSU to cover the 2.5. I think the slipper is going to break. I think the Hogs are going to be let back into the barn. I think LSU is just too much for Arkansas. Arkansas has had a great season. They've had a great run so far. I love what they're doing right now, but I think this is LSU's game to lose.
Yeah, well, and we talked about this a few weeks back. In all seriousness, if I can get back to something serious, Taylon Green, the quarterback for Arkansas, he doesn't do a whole lot to hurt you, but he doesn't do a whole lot to help. He's kind of a middle of the road quarterback, and I'm not knocking him. Like, he's got good numbers: 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's not making mistakes, but he's not really doing much on the other side. Here's the thing, and from our Heisman watch on Thursday, I think Garrett Nussmeier has a value proposition chance to get into the Heisman mix if LSU can run the table. And there's a lot in front of LSU to be able to do that. But you're talking about Nussmeier with, just a hair under 2,000 yards passing. He had some big balls throws at the end of that game against Ole Miss the other day. And I think LSU got that kind of slap in the face wake-up call when they lost to USC, which could end up, working into hurting them later in the year, ironically, is, the big game, it didn't go the way everybody anticipated it. But I really think there is an opportunity here for the Tigers, family, I can't say it enough in the fake accent, for the family to run the table at least the best they can. Now, let's be honest here. There is a potential here, and I think you're in a good spot with your thoughts, Mac. They have Texas A&M the next week. Then they have Alabama. They have Florida. That doesn't really matter. They have a Vanderbilt team who looks a lot better than we all thought they were. And then Oklahoma, who couldn't score with a fistful of 50s on the Vegas Strip right now, but that's a different story for a different day. So I'm going to go with LSU. TJ's going with LSU. Mac, woo pig suey. TJ, you've got your favorite game to finish this up here, and it's a little off the radar, but an important game in the hierarchy of the Big 12.
Mike, Mac, I am all in on the Big 12 right now. It is the most fun conference to watch for me, top to bottom, right? Oh my goodness gracious. After that game last week, I was sold. I was just like, take all my money, but give me my winnings first. I've got Colorado and Arizona this week. And the reason why this is a big deal is because you got two teams. You got Colorado, who's coming off that tough loss to Kansas State. They're fighting to stay relevant in the Big 12. And you got Arizona, who after that win at Utah has done a whole bunch of nothing. And so this is an important game for both of these teams to survive in the Big 12. I see the loser of this game being pretty much done as far as the conference goes. And I'm taking Colorado to bounce back in this one. I think it's theirs. I think they were pissed from their performance last week. They let it get away from them. They stole it back and then let it get away from them. So I'm looking for Shedeur and Prime and all those boys to come out and beat Arizona this week in Tucson.
Yeah, I saw a lot, Mac, and I know you're going to have thoughts on this. I saw a lot of I don't know what to make of this Arizona team from the rest of the way down. I mean, you got T-Mac, you got Fafita, you got Conley, but like they lack some serious depth in a conference that they needed. And I do kind of agree with you there, Tony. Like the way that Colorado's kind of bounced back this year, They look a lot tougher, a lot more well-rounded than they did last year. They're not as easy of a target. That was a heartbreaker for them last week. But you eat the Baylor game. I mean, they could have very easily lost the Baylor game earlier this year. And I think that's the biggest thing, Mac, this U of A team, and I know you follow them closely as well. Like, I don't know what to make of the Wildcats right now.
Yeah, no, they absolutely got pounded last week at the BYU. I don't either. I mean, here's my my thing though. You know, Colorado, they play well, but it seems like in the big games, they just can't seem to get over the top. You know, we saw it in the Nebraska game this year, and again last week. They just can't seem to get and make that big play when they really, really need it. But here's my thing. I don't really think this is a big game. I think Colorado wins this game. I don't think this Arizona team is really good. They haven't shown me that they're good. Yeah, I mean, Utah, but I mean, let's be honest. What's the Utah team really? Let's really have to evaluate that. I don't think they're very good as well. So, you know, this is not a big game. I think this is a game that Colorado wins.
You mentioned Utah. Do you have anything to add, TJ? Because I can already see the gear turning in your head.
Utah has, Cam Rising, larceny, gram theft, NIL. That's all I have to say.
That sounds like a new game my son's gonna try and play, Grand Theft NIL. Let's move to the NFL, but before we do, the round robin of all round robins, and I have an apology for the city of Buffalo. So I played a round robin bet this week, and it's got a couple of college legs. So as we close the college door here, Georgia Tech on the money line at a plus 320, Tennessee on the money line at a plus 124. I'll give you the rest of it here in a second. But guys, the NFL, we're starting to see the cream rise to the top. You know, we've got a lot of good stuff coming up. That Dallas-Detroit game was interesting last week. General thoughts on where we are in the season right now? We've got some huge games this weekend, some massive battles, a Super Bowl rematch. We've got the NFC North battle that we didn't know we needed at the beginning of the season. All kinds of stuff going on in the National Football League. What are your thoughts? Where are we at? Before we hop international and talk about that international crisis that's going on in Jacksonville/London.
Well, I for one, Mike, am very confident in my Super Bowl prediction right now. That game last week was it was so fun to watch the Lions last week. So fun. And it was so great to watch Dallas just collapse. I enjoyed that very much. But I think even with the injury to Hutchinson, it was just gnarly. And I feel so bad for him because he's such a good dude. That Lions team is sneaky good. And I think that they have a tough one this weekend. But I think they're poised, and I think they're ready to make a run.
Mac, initial thoughts as we sit here going into another week of the NFL and some big things going on, some big things coming up. Where are you at? Where's your state of the NFL address right now?
Well, my state of the NFL address would probably take place at Taco Bell because that's where it seems like everything seems to happen here this last week at Taco Bell. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, we're starting to see those top teams start to separate themselves are pretty good. And there's still some teams that I still have some questions about in there, but there's also some really, really bad NFL teams this year. And it's a little bit shocking, quite honestly. There's some, I mean, really bad teams.
Yeah, and before we get into it, obviously, to recap the biggest news, if you will, of the week, the Taco Bell reference. Amari Cooper is now a Buffalo Bill. Devontae Adams is now a New York Jet. And can we stop? And I just did that for the people that are living under a damn rock, or 12 of them that didn't know that. There's also a house apparently in Vegas available that has a Taco Bell in it. Maybe, maybe not. Can we stop with the Max Crosby? Oh, would you give up this to get Max Crosby? Has anybody who has a legitimate, reasonable credential said that Max Crosby, the guy who literally has it tattooed on his damn body about how much he loves being a Raider. Can we stop these hypotheticals on, oh, Detroit's going to go out and get Max Crosby? How do you even know he's available? You would have to go over the top with the Raiders to get them to give up Max Crosby. And I know this is near and dear to your heart, TJ. Like, Max Crosby is a Raider. Like, you can't draw a better Raider than Max Crosby. So stop trying to create your bullshit narratives that Max Crosby is available and there's so many teams in. If Max Crosby went to the Raiders and said, trade me, the Raiders would probably tell him to get back. Okay, let's stop that now. The Devontae Adams situation was a whole different ballgame. We'll get to that. We'll get to the Buffalo Bills. But let's start talking about a disaster that's taking place overseas. I can't remember who said this, but I love the friggin' idea. Said if you go play in London, you should have to win your way back to the States. I thought it was an incredible idea. It'll never happen. But Doug Peterson, there's a slippery slope, if you will, to take the line straight from the ESPN article. A lot of quit in the Jaguars versus the Bears. Now they get a New England team coming in that, let's just be frank about it, they suck. But the Jags are an abject disaster right now. Jacksonville's favored by 5.5 in this game on Sunday morning at the butt crack of dawn, over under about 42.5. This Jacksonville team, I know you're not going to fire the guy while he's in London. TJ would probably fire him in London. But Mack, you're not going to fire him in London. But the second his feet touch back on the ground, regardless of what happens in this game, I don't know how much longer Doug Peterson's got a job in Jacksonville.
I told you the last time we talked that this team is terrible, and they've been terrible for quite a while now. I'll tell you what, he better check his ticket. That's all I got to say. Make sure that it's a round trip. That's what I mean, because I'm pretty sure. I'll be honest. I thought it would have been absolutely super if they fired him after Sunday's game, make him just fly back on his own or whatever, take a ship back if he needed to. I don't really care. But, I mean, something has to happen. I mean, if they lose to the stinking Patriots, I mean, you want to talk about a disaster. That's a disaster right there. No one's crying out, hey, the Patriots are coming. The Patriots are coming. It's not going to happen. Nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly. Teach, I mean, what's your take on the Jags?
This whole thing with Waffle House Jesus and losing all these starts in a row or losing what? It's now, I think it's 10 or 11 out of the last 12. Like, something has to give here. They paid him they paid him a ton of money. He's getting paid Justin Herbert money. He's getting paid, Joe Burrow money. You need to take, if you're the captain of this team, you need to take over this team and get them to play better. And I understand that they've had a lot of injuries on the offense, but you have to be better. You are the leader, and losing 10 or 11 or 12 out of 13 or whatever it is at this point. I mean, I can't count that high. It's an absolute joke. I would have canned him if I would have sent him back. I would have made him fly coach. It would have been just something's got to give here, right? Something has to change. And if you're not going to change the personnel, then you got to change the coach.
Well, I think the thing that, I know Trevor Lawrence has had his struggles, and I can lean towards, I'm not going to give him the rookie pass, if you will, because he's not there anymore. But this team, the biggest issue with the Jaguars is defensively, they are just absolute. I mean, you send it out in the group text all the time. They are absolute ass on defense. They are horrible on defense. And that's not helping anything. But collectively, yeah, I mean, Lawrence has struggled. They've had injuries all across the offense, the defensive side of the ball. I'm very kind of interested to watch this game. Jacksonville should beat New England 7 out of the 10 times they play. But after Peterson's comments last week about how he sees a lot of quit in the group, you never know how that's going to go, especially when you're all stuck across the pond somewhere for a couple of weeks. We don't know what we're going to get out of Jacksonville, and I'm interested to see, do the Jaguars say, hey, this is a team. Let's just enough with the BS. Let's run with it. Let's move forward. After that, they've got a game with the Packers. Then they go to Philly. They've got the Vikings, the Lions, the Texans. I mean, it ain't getting any easier. And if they don't win this one, I don't know if they're going to have another win until the second week of December.
Yeah, this is a brutal stretch for them. They need to figure it out. They just need to figure it out, and hopefully they can figure it out against Drake May and the Patriots. It's hard because the Jaguars, I don't want to criticize, like, they made moves. They tried to improve. They really did. You can go back and watch my preview. They tried to improve this team. And I thought that they did. They're just not getting the results. And something has to change. Something has to give.
No, not at all. I'm not touching this game one bit whatsoever from a betting standpoint. Absolutely not at all. Not even with your stacks of cash, TJ. Marquee matchup this weekend. There's actually two of them. Obviously, we know the big one. It's the rematch of a couple of Super Bowls. The Kansas City Chiefs in Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers. If you got this number early enough in the week, you could have got the Chiefs at plus money underdogs here on the money line. It's still out there, but the better time to get it was earlier in the week. Here's my thing on this game. Patrick Mahomes is 4-0 against San Francisco, 339 yards a game passing, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Kansas City's averaging 29.2 points per game against the Niners. Who were the defensive coordinators for the Niners during that stretch? Bobby Saleh, DeMeco Ryans, now Sorensen in the group. Granted, the Niners aren't playing with full deck, but I'm tired of hearing that excuse because where we're at in the NFL at this point in the season, everybody's banged up. Wait till we get into some of these other games here. The bottom line for the Niners is they've got to exercise the demons of the Kansas City Chiefs, whether it's in the regular season, God forbid that they try and do it in the Super Bowl. But Mahomes, with his career record against the Niners, both of these teams, and if you want to be real technical about it from a betting standpoint, the Chiefs have had more rest than the Niners, but they're both coming in rested. I think the Chiefs have a corner of the dome in San Francisco, and I'm going to be honest with you, I jumped on it. The Chiefs at plus money underdogs, I jumped on it because, again, they're at the top of the power pyramid. They're at the top of the heap for me. We saw what they did against New Orleans, resting. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is available. I mean, there's more guys coming around available, and that's just plug and play for the Chiefs. I didn't agree with the line whatsoever. That's just me. Teach, what do you think?
No, I think if you got it with plus money, I think that's a steal. You nailed it. Bang on. This Chiefs team is in the Niners' head, and they need to do something about it. And the fact that the Chiefs are almost like they kind of have that Patriot blueprint where, we're just going to plug in skill players and we've got a star quarterback and we're just going to plug this guy in the receiver and this guy at running back. And, you're broken at running back. We'll go get somebody we had 3 years ago and bring him back. And he'll just go right in seamlessly. I think that the Chiefs, once again, I know it sounds like a broken record. They're the team to beat until somebody beats them. So if you got this at plus money, I think that's a fantastic play.
Yeah, I played it a couple different ways. We'll talk about it on the Sunday spread. What do you think here, Mac? I mean, am I crazy for I don't care where the game's being played at. I don't see the scenario, especially with the way the season started. Both teams have injury issues, but the Niners have a kicker with a jacked up shoulder, a running back with a jacked up shoulder. They've got Jawan Jennings is questionable. I mean, yeah, I'm not crying for the Niners side of things. The Chiefs had the same issues. I just don't see a world where that makes any sense to me, that the Chiefs are plus money underdogs at the beginning of the week to the Niners, and it's kind of stayed. I mean, as of late last night, I looked on, we're talking late Thursday night, and there was still some plus 102s out there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I honestly, with all the injuries, isn't it kind of weird to think that Kansas City is actually better now than they might have been at the beginning of the season? I mean, that's just kind of how I feel. But I mean, I truly believe that. I mean, I think they're a better team now than they were the first couple of weeks of the season. And like you said, they've just kind of, TJ, I thought it was a great, that the Patriots model of just kind of putting people in there. But yeah, I mean, every great team, and let's be honest, the Chiefs are a great team, and they've shown that. They have these stretches where there's always that one team that they just can't that just can't seem to get over the top, and unfortunately it might be the 49ers.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting shakeout for this game, and this starts kind of a tricky stretch if you're San Francisco. You've got Kansas City, you've got Dallas at home, then a bye week, then Tampa Bay, Seattle, Green Bay, Buffalo, and the Bears, who don't look as easily beatable as you would have thought at the beginning of the year. And then LA, who's already beat them. They're going to Miami late in the year. We'll talk about Miami here in just a little bit. Detroit, and then they've got the flex game at the end of the year. It could be any day, could be any spot against Arizona. The Niners they're about to get to the thick of it. They're going to get some help, but I mean, Kansas City plug play, 4 tight ends, 7 running backs, Dino chicken nuggets off a Happy Meal box. It doesn't friggin' matter with them. They get the Raiders after that, then Tampa Bay, Denver, and Buffalo. That's Kansas City's next wave there.
You just think San Francisco is going to work their way out of it. I mean, because they always do. And so, just every week, like you just think, well, this is going to be the week that the 49ers kind of just put it together. But it just, they haven't. But I don't know, maybe this is their week.
The loss of Dre Greenlaw, I think, cannot be stated enough to his importance on the San Francisco defense. Dre Greenlaw is a way better football player than I think a lot of people realize. And those two together, Warner and Greenlaw, make that Niners defense even better. So obviously that's the first of the big ones. The second big one, the NFC North battle, we didn't know we needed. And let's be honest about this here, guys. The NFC North might very well be the best division in all of football right now. Say what you want about, the Bears can't. The results are the results, and we're going to talk about a couple of them. But let's start at the top. Lions and Vikings got a couple of key injuries to keep an eye on. Been monitoring these all week. Aaron Jones' status for the Vikings, Brian Branch and Carlton Davis for the Lions, and obviously the biggest news from last weekend, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows for the Lions in ruining Jerry Jones's birthday, the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. Can any team overcome that? The Detroit Lions can. Not saying that he's a nothing. I mean, that's a massive, massive loss for the Lions. They're going to do what they can this week. Obviously, the trade deadline's coming up, which has turned into a thing in the NFL that's actually more exciting than it ever used to be. But if there's a team that can rally around that and find a way the next man up it, I'd put my money on the Lions. That being said, the Vikings are the home team here. The Vikings are coming off the rest. We talk about the emotional highs and the low lows, the massive, and you knew watching that Detroit-Dallas game last week, that was effing personal to the nth degree for the Lions. They trolled the entire friggin' day. That was a big deal for them. Now they've got to bring it again, and this one really matters because it's within the division, and they get a rested Vikings team. So I'm interested to see this. I have Minnesota in this one. I believe in that defense that much. The Aaron Jones thing does matter a lot to me before I'll actually pull the trigger on the bet. Mac, what do you think?
I like this Minnesota team. I like everything about them. I like the way Donald's playing. I just think their defense is good. But here's the thing. We know no team is going to go undefeated in a football season. They're due for a loss. And I know they've had a little bit of extra time for this game, but this Detroit team scares me. They really, really do. I mean, it just seems like they have an answer for everything. And what they did last week, and I know it's the Cowboys, but still, this is a team that's on a mission. I know that injury to Hutchinson is going to hurt them, but I also think, and we've seen it before, that can galvanize them even more. I think this is going to be a game. The Lions are going to come out. It's not going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. But I think the Lions are going to take this one. This is, I think, a perfect setup for them.
Man, if the Lions can run the ball with any success, I think they have a really good shot at this game because the Minnesota pass defense is not great, but they got to be able to run the ball. They've got to do something on the ground to be successful in this game. I'm actually I'm taking the over on this game. I'm taking the over because it's inside, and I'm taking the over because we got Goff, and I had no idea Darnold was going to be this good this year. He's just doing everything right. So I'm going to play the over on this game, but yeah, I think if Detroit can.
I mentioned this to echo exactly what you're saying there on Darnold. I think the Aaron Jones factor has been the biggest help for Sam Darnold this year. I mean, they're just a different friggin' team with him. Cam Akers gets sent back their neck of the woods. You know, there's a lot of Minnesota's in on this thing. And I think I like the Vikings because they are the home team in this game. We know, like you just mentioned, we know the golf thing inside the dome, but I mean, both these teams are playing in the dome. They know each other. They know each other well. Both of these defenses are nasty. Like I cannot wait to watch that game on Sunday as well. Sneaky good game for me. I'm going to go to Atlanta, the host of a future Super Bowl, as we found out this week. Seattle and Atlanta. Seattle's on a tailspin here. Atlanta at home, and I'm starting to come around on the Falcons, man. When you watch them play, their defense is stingy as hell. They can get it done offensively in the air. They can get it done on the ground. Seattle's in a tailspin here, and they're still banged up on the defensive side of the football. I like this game to be a massive shootout. I think we're going to see a lot of points in this game, and you're going to see a desperation kind of side of Seattle. Obviously, there was some sideline issues with DK Metcalf and Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator. You know, can we throw the ball past the damn sticks? Sounds like from what, you know, we can see from the outside looking in, they've worked that out. I'm going to take the Seahawks here. They're part of my round robin big play for the weekend. I do like them in the spot to bounce back, but that's not throwing shade at Atlanta. I do love the over in this game. I like the Seahawks, assuming that they can have their internal issues worked out. Because if Seattle loses this game, you can put a fork in them for the rest of the season as far as the NFC playoff picture because of what's happening already in the North. I like this one. I really do like this game as an under the radar kind of game. And I know I'm talking about your Falcons, Mac. I mean, you're Mr. Falcon over here, Mr. Arkansas Falcons. So
I know I was a little disappointed. Last week was the first week I didn't actually watch the Falcons play. I kind of felt bad. But listen, this is the team this is a team that every week has really gotten a whole lot better. I mean, I don't think Cousins can be much better than he was. I mean, 500 yards is a pretty impressive performance. Offensively, this team is getting better. They're starting to understand each other a little bit more. They have a pretty good balance, and they're good defensively as well. They got a sneaky good kicker as well. Seattle, like you said, has struggled a little bit. I just think this is a win for Atlanta this week.
I'm playing the over. Again. I think this is going to be a shootout. It's inside. I like that. But I had no idea that Seattle's pass offense was so good. I mean, you think of Geno Smith, and whenever I think of Geno Smith, I think of his time with the Jets, where the guy couldn't do anything right, and he goes into a great situation in Seattle where he's gonna be the guy, but they took a lot of pressure off of him in making that offense, in creating that offense. He's got good skill players. He don't make a mistake, and you're going to be fine. This Seattle team is sneaky. I like what you said about how this is pretty much their season, though. They need to win this game, but I'm kind of a little bit scared of taking a side in this one. I'm going points.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy when we're still relatively early in the NFL season to start calling games must wins, but when you look at the development and you take a peek at the standings in the NFC, I mean, we're talking about San Francisco is the 4 seed in the NFC, but they're really, 10th as far as record and conference record goes. They'd be the 4 seed out of winning the West. So, you've got all these 1 and 2 loss teams. If Seattle goes to 4 losses already, in the rest of their schedule isn't a cakewalk for them. I mean, they've got Buffalo, granted, at home. Then they get the Rams. Then they're at San Francisco, a team that they've struggled to beat over the last 3 years. They have to go to the Jets. Obviously, they play the Cardinals. They have the Packers. They have the Vikings. They have the Bears. I mean, Seattle doesn't get easier for the Seahawks. And 3-4, I think, sinks that ship. We've got a couple other good games here as we get wrapped up. Again, you can follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show. Tag your friends. Tell your friends. We had a good week last week. We were 11-6. The picks were there. It's not going to happen every week. Stay for a while. Have a few laughs. Have a couple of drinks. Mack, your favorite game of the week? I like this one a lot, too. Give it to us.
We got Houston traveling to Green Bay. Again, we know this Houston team. We saw what they did last year. We know that they were building. We knew this was going to be the year for them to kind of really explode. We didn't know what I really didn't know what to expect from this Green Bay team. I mean, they're actually been pretty good. And if you look at so far this year, there are 2 losses. I mean, they lost to the Eagles and they also lost to the Vikings. But again, this is a Green Bay team that is really, really impressed me a whole lot better than what I thought last week. I mean, they just demolished the Cardinals. I mean, that was just an absolute drilling of the Cardinals. And I thought, after watching the Cardinals play a couple of weeks ago, I thought that they were a pretty good team, but they just really took it to them. I'm impressed. So I think this is, we talk about Houston needing to grow as a football team. This is a growth game. We all know it. We don't know, even if Green Bay is not good, it's still going to Green Bay. It's you're playing in Lambeau. It's that kind of a game. This is kind of, I'll use the word, this is a litmus test, I think, for Houston.
Quit using words I can't spell. TJ, what do you think?
Sorry.
I love this matchup for the Packers. I agree with you, though. I think this is a game that Houston, this is a measuring stick for Houston. But I think this is Green Bay's game.
I am completely in disagreement with you two. There's a shocker. I love this Houston team. I don't think as you go forward, every time you expect them to, hey, maybe have the hiccup, maybe like, hey, they are a young team, it's to be expected. Plus, I don't really think this Green Bay team is as good as everybody says they are. They've got a lot of young players that are maturing right before our eyes. We don't know what the hell the actual incident was with show favorite Romeo Doubs a couple of weeks ago. Christian Watson, the addition of Josh Jacobs has been a huge help. Jordan Love is getting the job done. Jair Alexander, he's got the groin issue. That's a kind of a deal breaker for me there. If he plays, is he going to be 100%? Now, on the flip side, you could say the same thing about the Texans. We know they don't have Nico Collins. I am 1,000% drinking the Kool-Aid on this Texans team because it doesn't seem like they get rattled. The game against Buffalo a couple weeks ago at home, the young team that was coming off the really good year the year before crumbles and loses that game. I don't think playing Green Bay on October, what the hell day is Sunday, the 19th, whatever the hell it is. October in Green Bay is not December in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. And the Packers team is very similar to, I think, where the Texans are. I think when you eyeball them paper to paper there, these are 2 very similar football teams. Veterans, young players. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I've got the Texans. They're another part of that round robin. They're the 4th leg on my round robin this week. I'm a D'Amico believer, 1,000%. And I think it was the game against Buffalo a couple weeks ago. If they would have crumbled, you could have made hey, you know what? Young team, they're still learning how to win. It seems like every time you expect that regression from them, it doesn't happen. Let's go to our last favorite game of the day. And TJ, I'm going to let you start with this one because this thing's got so much smoke on the side of it on both sides. What is your game of the week?
Mack's going to love it. It's the Jets and the Steelers on Sunday night. Look, this game, so there are no more excuses for the Jets. There's none. You got rid of the coach. You've got your receivers now. You've gotten the band back together. There are no more excuses now. It's put up or shut up. And this is the game that's going to tell us. The Jets are going to go into a hostile environment against an excellent defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need to come out with a win or they are done. And that's just the bottom line here. I don't think if they go to 2-5, I think they're just done for. And this whole Rodgers, Lazard, Adams, whomever experiment is over. So they need to win this game. And the Steelers are the Steelers. They're like, you know what they're like? They're like that freaking ex-girlfriend that just keeps hanging around and keeps on calling you and bothering you. Like I thought we were done with the Steelers a couple of years ago when Ben left. No. Russ Wilson, Justin Fields, whatever. This defense is legit, though. That this team has been built around the defense, and they're just going to pound the ball. This is going to be a great Sunday night game if you like defense. If you like players like TJ Watt, this is going to be a great game, and I'm going under on this game. And you know me, I'm the over king, but I'm going under on this game. But the Jets have to win, or they're done.
Can somebody explain to me what in the absolute effing hell Mike Tomlin was thinking switching quarterbacks this week? Because here's the reality of it, and I know Mack has got lots to say on this. Justin Fields wasn't going to break NFL passing records, but you know what he wasn't going to do? He wasn't going to break your season. Let's call a spade, Tomlin. Your offensive line is 20th in the NFL. Fields isn't doing over-the-top wow things on offense, but he's not hurting you either. Now you're going to take a guy who is immobile as all hell on the downside of his career and put him behind a bad offensive line. Makes perfect freaking sense to me. Way to go, buddy. What the hell is going on in Pittsburgh, Mac?
Well, man, do we have 30 minutes? Because I might need 30 minutes. You know, let's start with this. Mike Tomlin, his rule is this: you cannot lose your job if you get hurt. That's his rule, I guess. And so apparently Russell Wilson was hurt and he can't lose his job because of that. That's the stupidest thing that I've heard since I don't know, since I don't even have the words for this. This is honestly the dumbest thing. I mean, I feel he does dumb things. I feel like there's a lot of dumb things that he does. He makes me pull my hair out. I mean, I don't understand this. First off, I don't know how they're winning. Well, I do know how they're winning. They kick 7 field goals a game. That's how they're winning. They get to the 30-yard line and they just stop. We're at the 30-yard line. We can kick a field goal, so we're done. This is all we need to do. So I don't know. To make a change now makes absolutely no sense to me at all. I mean, is that first off, is it an upgrade? No, it's not an upgrade. Is that your future? No, it's not your future either. It's not your future. It's not an upgrade. If he starts Wilson and they lose, which I'm telling you they probably are going to do, you're going to go back to Fields, or are you just going to run the season out with Wilson? Well, I think this is a no-win situation for Tomlin. I can't see him coming out looking good. That being said, they'll probably win.
You got nothing to lose, though. I mean, you play Fields, you lose to the Jets. You play Wilson, you lose to the Jets. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. How in the hell do they get back-to-back home games in Pittsburgh with the two New York teams? That's why you make the switch, because you know the ass Giants are coming in 2 weeks after this. I mean, back-to-back home games, back-to-back primetime home games against the New York teams. Like, it makes zero effing sense. The Jets, we know what's going on with the Jets. Now Mike Tomlin just created his own crap in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it from either side. It makes no sense. I'd rather have a mobile quarterback that can make up for the deficient, terrible offensive line than an old sack of potatoes that was done 2 stops ago. How much money did Denver pay him to go away? What does that tell you about Russell Wilson, and you're putting him behind a deficient offensive line? TJ, make this make sense.
I can't make it make sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. And that's the only chance that the Jets have to win this game, is hoping that Broncos country let's ride shows up instead of Seahawks country let's ride. So, but that's their only shot.
Mack, it's your final word on this one. These are your fighting Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know, here's what's frustrating as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. This defense could win a Super Bowl. Maybe they should put the defense on the offensive side. Maybe that's what they should do. Maybe we should have Watt as our quarterback. Can't do any hell of a lot worse than Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. I mean, here's the problem. You're playing with a playbook from 1978. That's part of the problem right there. I'm surprised they don't use the fullback a little bit more. Why don't we run the fullback a little bit more? This is crazy. I don't know. Maybe Terry Bradshaw's not busy next week. Maybe we can have him come in and take a couple of reps. He's not hurt. He hasn't lost his job. We might as well put him in there. But I'm going for Watt. Watt as quarterback. Maybe we put Mike Fitzpatrick as our wide receiver. Absolutely. This is just dumb. He needs to go away.
Do you have another quarter for him? I want to see it again.
Man. Can't stand
Man, all of a sudden now I can't wait to watch Sunday Night Football this week. I really can't. And here's my thing.
You know what? And that's the worst part. And now I gotta wait all day. I gotta watch all these good games, and then I gotta sit there and wait till this game comes out at night. It's no. You know what? Chimunga.
Well, we know Mack just had his final word. TJ, do you have any final words before I sincerely apologize to the city of Buffalo?
I can't even approach the magnitude of what we just saw. But all I can say is that he's absolutely right. And look, these matchups are going to be great on Sunday. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Lions bounce back. I'd like to see the Niners exercise their demons against the Chiefs. But one thing's for sure, the Raiders will take it in the shorts, and I'll just leave it at that.
I'm going to take us home, and I'm going to try to after that. But Buffalo Bills fans, I got to hand it to you. You know, you went through the mini gauntlet 1-2. They're at the top of the AFC East. Obviously, the Jets with a massive move for Devontae Adams, and you guys can say that they're scared of you all you want. Listen, here's the thing. It doesn't really matter, because in a year or two, hopefully two, if you're a Jets fan, what was going to happen in New York? You were going to rebuild the thing. So sell the farm, sell your friggin' soul. Bring every Taco Bell within a home into your 800 square foot apartments in Manhattan and Jersey and wherever the hell else you want to go. I have no problem with the Jets going all in. Buffalo, I owe you an apology. Your team's a little bit better than I thought, and they went out and got Amari Cooper this week. So Buffalo Bills fans, I like what you're doing. I like the way the team's made up. That being said, I still have massive concerns about your depth. And when Tua Tagovailoa comes back, because nobody's been able to separate themselves in the AFC East, my bold proclamation, because I have plenty of quarters, is that division, everybody that thinks that division's is Buffalo's to walk away with, the Jets are coming for your ass. The Dolphins are coming for your ass. The Patriots are ass. But it's not a done deal right now, like I'm starting to hear Bills fans chirp about. Ray Davis was sensational on Monday night. But if you think for a damn second right now that you've won the AFC East, you have no idea what you're talking about or what you're watching. because you can push this Jets team off the proverbial cliff all you want. They're not done. They still have moves to make. They don't care because they're all in because they know the whole thing's going to implode in a couple years. They need a new quarterback. They need a new everything. So why not go all in? Props to the Jets because there's plenty of teams out there that sit on their hands. They sit on their ass. They do nothing. They put crap products on the field. Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, things like that every week. Here's a team that everybody wants to go, oh, 35-year-old receiver and blah, blah, blah. They did something. And there's a lot of you out there, fans of other teams that do nothing. They do nothing. And all you want to do is criticize the Jets because they're the Jets. And a lot of it's coming from Bills fans. Are you scared? Is that what it is? Are you scared? Because you know the depth thing is going to come up. That AFC East is going to go down like it usually does to the end. But the Jets are still in it. And a healthy Tua reminds the Dolphins how to spell the word end zone. That AFC East is a long way from over. That's all I have to say about that. And I want to go buy his house with the damn Taco Bell in it in Vegas. So if it's on the market, Devontae, give me a call, bro. Give me a call. So that leaves us into another football weekend. Tag your friends. Tell your friends. You know where to follow us. You know where to find us. For Vegas Mack, who needs to go recharge the batteries. For TJ, who's going to get his Raider bag head thing out to watch the Raiders again this weekend. And for me, I've got demons. We could go a whole nother couple hours. For TJ, Vegas Mac, the people behind the scenes, another Moss Football Friday next week. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.